Hey, what's up everyone? I hope you guys are well. I wanted to pop on with a quick walk and talk here and chime in on what's been going on here with the war in Ukraine that sprung up seemingly out of nowhere. And I've been kind of withholding judgment as it's hard to make heads or tails of what's going on. But the reality is we're in the midst of informational warfare, spiritual warfare. I think this is a manifestation of such warfare, and I've been studying Russian propaganda and propaganda, kind of as a whole, as it's the method, kind of the main method of getting information, whether it's our side, their side, good side, bad side, whatever it may be. It's all propaganda. And I've been watching this video. I'm going to see if I can splice it in here, or I'll link to it, of this type of reflexive warfare, this type of hybrid warfare that the Russia has been engaged in, and the West has been engaged in for a better part of a decade and even longer. So here, I'll see if I can put this in here real quick.
Fake news is all over the news these days. But it's only a small part of Russia's hybrid war to rebuild its former empire and gain dominance over the West. Russia's strategy is based on a method called Reflex of Control. The Soviet and Russian intelligence community have researched it for half a century. With it, Russia changes its opponent's view of the world, so he is tricked into making the self-defeating decisions Russia wants, without even knowing it. Russia does this by creating a simulacrum, or virtual reality, with disinformation and other active measures. It targets both decision-makers and the general population to prompt political decisions made in Russia's favor, or to sow paralysis and confusion which weaken societies. Here is how reflexive control is being used against Ukraine. In 2014, Russia confused the West and Ukraine with its unmarked soldiers in Crimea and a military buildup on the eastern border. Nobody knew what Russia's real intentions were and how to react. The Russian-backed militants in Donbass are fed fake news about supposed Ukrainian atrocities to keep them fighting against Ukraine. And the Russian population is conditioned to support the Donbass militants and Putin. The unpredictability and fog of war Russia creates over Donbass deters the international community from entering the conflict. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, Russia fabricates pro-Russian protests and movements to divide and exhaust. In each case, Russia gets into the minds of its opponents and exploits their weakest spot. In a conflict with reflexive control, the side that knows more about the other wins. Russia is studying its enemies very closely. Are we doing the same?
And at the end of the video, it says, talks about the strategy and the tactics that Russia's been using. It says, are we doing the same thing? And I think we are. And I'm going to kind of provide a hypothesis here, or a take that I haven't really heard yet, in what's going on, because all of a sudden we've had, 2 years of constant coronavirus and mitigation measures, beat over the head by them, and all of a sudden when those measures are going away across the country and across the world, it's completely out of the headlines, and we have this emerging war in Ukraine. And I haven't really commented on this, but when I visited a monastery a couple months ago, and I was told by one of the Yerondas there kind of what's going to happen. He told me, before any of this was going on with Russia and Ukraine, at least recently, he told me that there's going to be a pivot away from coronavirus and away from what's going to turn out to be many kind of vaccine harm, and we provided 6 billion vaccinations, over 10 billion doses given across the globe, right? So it doesn't have to be some grand conspiracy that there's going to be some harm and some negative effects, some adverse effects that result from it. But those negative effects will be dampened down through this kind of reorientation towards, and I was told this exactly by a geopolitical a geopolitical event that's going to include Russia. And I was told that Russia will be somehow baited or somehow made to attack a European or even an American, country or city. So there can be a focus on just how bad Russia is. And, as Putin is known to use this psychological reflexive hybrid warfare against the West, I think the West is doing the same. And what might have happened here, and the hypothesis has to do with kind of how Putin might have been propagandized, or the intelligence network might have leveraged some information to kind of encourage him or to bait him into invading Ukraine, making him think that it would be an easy, quick kind of takeover of the country, or at least of some of the territories in the country. And that's not what happened. And we've seen that the invasion has kind of rallied the entire globe against Russia, which rightfully so. I mean, if they're invading, seemingly they're invading a sovereign country unprovoked. But it could be a situation where you have this transnational biosecurity state that's kind of superordinate to any nation, that I think is best exemplified by the Klaus Schwab World Economic Forum Build Back Better type ideas, where the goal is to continue to diminish American small businesses, American kind of entrepreneurship, and kind of shift the focus more towards this global technocratic order. And what better way to do that than have this geopolitical event that will be used to continue to increase inflation, increase the cost of energy, and continue to decrease the availability of once ubiquitous products on the shelf. That will be amplified, and that will continue to happen, but under the auspices now that we're in a wartime, and that we kind of need to do our duty and participate in these austere measures for the greater good. So I don't know if that makes sense. I'm just kind of formulating that, but it seems something's very strange with what's happened all of a sudden in this unprovoked invasion from Vladimir Putin. He might have been one-upped, he might have been duped, he might not have, right? Again, into thinking that this was going to be an easy kind of walkthrough, and they would be greeted as kind of liberators through their brothers in Ukraine. So just starting to formulate this hypothesis. Let me know what you guys think. I know it must sound hyper conspiratorial to a lot of people, but we are in a state of informational, we are in a state of spiritual warfare. So my advice would be to withhold judgment, have discussions in good faith, and don't react or overreact to pieces of information that come through once trusted channels of information, because there's propaganda on all sides, and it's hard to make heads or tails. But let's not increase the already untoward pressure on the globe, the populations, the people of the world, and let's try to make sense of this senselessness that we're seeing. So let me know what you guys think. I will be with you guys soon. God bless.